All right. Okay. Awesome. So we are on time. A few people are just joining. I see vocally also saying hi, Harry, in the chat comment. So some people have showed up to listen. Awesome. So let's start. Thank you for everybody who's joining. We appreciate your time. This LinkedIn Live will be recorded, but we are also live. So as you are listening to us, if you put in comments within the chat section in LinkedIn, I will be able to respond to you. All right. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live with Harry Ghuman, who was the founder of the Oracle Insight team, and he also happens to be my uncle. So my name is Ajit Ghuman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Monetizely. We are a SaaS pricing strategy consulting firm. And today, the topic of discussion really is about value consulting and how Harry built this team at Oracle. We'll want to learn about the some of the backstory of why this team was so successful and popular, how it spawned different teams like that in the valley, some of the key insights and key war stories that came out from this experience, and how a regular B2B SaaS firm can actually adopt these insights to increase deal value and increase sale velocity. So thank you, Uncle. Thank you for joining. I would love for you to also introduce yourself in the call so that people can get a little bit context, given they're different companies. They may not exactly know the work you've done.
Yeah, so I think I've been doing this value consulting type of work in the tech industry now for many years. And I think the topic, Ajit, you asked me to actually talk about how we started this at Oracle, which Oracle Insight is a trademark program. And whenever we first trademarked it, I believe in 2005, I would say it's now almost 20 years it's running, and that would make it the longest running program in any company of such kind.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to actually think about what the issue was, right? It just Oracle was trying to transform from mainly a database company to an applications company and then a full portfolio company. That was the context. And
Yeah.
how would we actually go about and solving this problem? And we like segmented the different industries that we had the best fit in. And that turned out to be for Oracle ERP and like in general for those ERPs, it was the in manufacturing sector. And we said, okay, now if we are going to really go deep into this sector, we needed a few trial customers where we went and kind of worked with them, developed like our complete value proposition, where our fit was with the product, and one thing leading to the other, we became extremely successful in the manufacturing sector. First in the US, and then we expanded our offering to all of the other horizontal products that we had. So we were actually covering all the applications. And that's about approximately the same time Oracle was like on a big acquisition spree and buying PeopleSoft and Siebel and many other companies who had some similar programs as well. Suddenly, our problem had actually become very big in terms of how are we going to be able to demonstrate our value proposition to the customer
Mm-hmm.
and not make it too complex. So we took a step back and we came up with very good methods where we could do a lot of the work in terms of building the right type of frameworks for the different industries, different product areas, very robust frameworks, and many of them are still in use in the industry.
Makes
So
sense. Makes sense.
yeah, so one of the issues, Oracle is a big company, right? I just so a lot of people could potentially take away, oh, this kind of works for big companies. No, it does not. Oracle is a as a big company. It was a big company then, but every sales team was like a small company. They had a lot of independence, and for some of them, they owned a small vertical and like in a particular geography or like a geography oriented mid market sales teams. And they had a lot of independence, and some of them were selling like a few single solutions, human resources, supply chain, etc., or financials, but others were like selling a more enterprise type of solutions. So we needed to build a program that was very scalable. It would work for a company or a division who was or a sales team who's actually selling a single solution and needs to cover a large number of customers. And then it should also scale up without changing any of the methods. And we were dealing with the Fortune 500 or the Global 2000, and we didn't really want to change the method. So our method became very scalable by design because we built it from the bottom up.
So the idea, I guess I had a more basic question. At this time when you were doing this transition, you were trying to increase the adoption for the ERP solution, and then Oracle also became a portfolio company. Was value consulting, or the term value proposition has been around for a long time. What is different in value consulting, and were there other teams doing similar work when you were doing this? I'm just curious, what was the state of the industry at that time?
Yes, many people actually tinkered with this. There was like other companies at the same time. And I had colleagues came from all of those companies. I think I2, SAP, and Siebel also had really good methods. And the people from those companies actually joined our team. We continued to refine and broaden and make our methods deeper. But we continue, as our portfolio continued to evolve, we continue to actually continue to make our frameworks even stronger. The other thing was there was never going to be enough people in a specialized team, and that is true. And
Right.
this is where one of our approaches was actually very unique in the industry at that time, that we planned to enable thousands of people to be able to do some of this on their own and not just rely on a 200 people team globally to be able to do it. Because, I mean, if we could actually let 7,000 people do it, that would be better. So that's one of the scale parts. We never really changed the method. We just train a lot of those people. And if you were in like a smaller country where you could not get like some specialized help, we would actually give you remote support and the same type of content and the same type of method. They would have the same conversations. So
Interesting.
by doing that, we could like enable a lot of people. And I think since you're talking about your the main segment here is for a lot of the SaaS companies, there's a lot of parallels in that because there's a some of the deal sizes are such that you can only invest so much in that. And so the approach scales up and down.
Hmm. So by using this approach, what sort of generalized outcomes did these sales teams see in terms of deal velocity or average contract value? Like, curious to see the before and after that you generally saw after adoption of a program like this.
There's several ways to answer it. And we had more data than anybody could actually imagine for every size of things. But let me step back.
Hmm.
And like what was the problem that we were really trying to solve? And like a colleague of mine who was heading up one of the larger sales divisions, when we were building it, I actually asked everybody because in a way he was the CEO of his part of the US. And I said, what do you think we need to get accomplished? This is what I would ask the CEOs of SaaS companies today, that
Yeah,
what do you think are the main issues? What do we need to resolve here?
yeah,
And he had a very interesting answer. He says, Harry, look, the top salespeople already know what to do. They have like very good instincts. They can like
yeah,
they are just not because they know all of these things.
yeah, yeah,
He says, I want to be able to make the C players into the B players and B
yeah.
players into the A players.
Makes
So
sense.
we need to hold a whole bunch of people's hands and not just the top people because they will figure out how to do this. I've actually remembered that forever, and that has influenced my thinking on how to build these programs. So we did the largest program, like the deals in the company. All of the large deals were our team was involved all over the world, And those deals could be like 10 million plus 30, 60, even 100. And the method remained the same, but
Hmm.
we also did a lot of the sub $1 million deals, and like $1 to $5 million probably was like a big part of the portfolio. But we would actually get them done pretty fast and using the resources that existed within the company, because every company, and the same was with Oracle. We had highly skilled sales consultants. I would say highly skilled. And we just needed to give them the right content, the right method, and maybe consult with them on are they calculating the right type of metrics and whatnot. And we had built a lot of IP so that other people could actually use our methods and be able to do it.
Makes sense. Can we, how about we just go through one example, like one example of a success story thing that is maybe more relevant to the type of people who are listening to us today? And just, I love the stories that you told me earlier, that you went to this opportunity and the buyer gave you like 4 hours to present, and then you had a whole approach, and the approach worked. And not only did it work, but the other consultants whom they were paying, they did not know what to do. So I'm curious, just to get people to understand. I think people understand the mechanics, but I would love to put them into the story as a movie story of what was happening, why this was so wildly successful. Because when we put this webinar thing out there, there are so many people who commented on LinkedIn that you've built my career. We created our value team based on this. So I would love to start a little bit with some of those stories so people can understand what sort of thing was happening at that time.
So you're right. We do have a very big fraternity. We built a very strong team,
Yeah.
and they went on to actually build many other programs at other tech companies. And I've actually, after you posted this, I've been receiving texts from some of them just to catch up on how things are going. The things that, because you asked me about the 4 hours, because I'd been mentioning some things that we were able to do in 4 hours. In general, we were very fast, and we were very fast. And now you say, what is so magical about 4 hours, and why do you need to be fast? People don't have time.
Hmm.
And I heard this time and again that if you had to actually coordinate like a whole bunch of people's schedule for like a multiple day workshop and this and that, the people just don't have time. Somebody's on vacation. It's the start of the quarter, end of the quarter, start of the month, end of the month. A
Yeah.
half day is reasonably easy to actually schedule with people. And there have been other examples where one of the very successful semiconductor company had an implementation of like a solution that hadn't gone well. They were not really getting value. And as I went in to just have a discussion,
Hmm.
and I had explained to them that, hey, in 3, 4 weeks, we can work with you. And that was the such standard pitch. And we will actually interview all of your people. And the P over there said, Harry, that's not possible. And I said, okay, I said, clear the table. Let's understand, why is it not possible? What do you need done? She said, we did all of that, and it did not really work for us. And now we are in a pickle because we asked all of those things, implemented, and things did not go well. So
Hmm.
we cannot really repeat that. And how much time do you think I can get?
Yeah.
And they said very little, 4 hours.
Okay.
Okay. And I said, okay, we can do something. And we just like worked close to their office for a number of days and really built a model of their business based on our knowledge and our frameworks. And luckily, it was a supply chain thing. There's a lot of supply chain
Yeah.
metrics and things like that available.
Yeah.
But we divided the problem into like the supply side and the demand side. And I went back and said, we will need 2 workshops, one for the supply side, one for the demand side. We'll give you what we think your business looks like. And I need as many people as you can get because I want them to just critique what we've built. And they came, they were very impressed that we were actually very close to accurate, and some of the numbers. that we were able to build on our outside view of what market information was available. And we probably maybe modified like 5-10% of our materials. And we did those like validation meetings for a very short time. And based on that validation meeting, we went back, like redid our presentations, and
Yeah.
we did like a big final presentation where I would say about 60 different director level and VP level people actually showed up, and
Yeah.
they wholeheartedly adopted the solution.
Yeah.
Not only they adopted the solution, they became one of the biggest Oracle references
Yeah.
using our materials to
Yeah.
actually even speak at public forums.
Interesting.
And then they invited me back and I said, would you please record one more session so that I said, what are you going to do with that? I've already told you many times. They said, oh no, we want to put your presentation as part of an employee orientation so that
Interesting.
new people that join here, they can see how our transformation is working. So the face time with the customer wasn't really that much, and they just became one of the largest Oracle customers.
And
Uh,
before this happened, they were saying that we're not getting value from this. So the
no,
idea, the
other solution. We totally changed the platform.
okay, okay, interesting,
And there
interesting.
was another particular thing, and maybe one of the people from the team in those days might be on the call. Like the earliest thing that where we were going to actually go propose that we will do like a 4 or 5 week study. And the customer said, no, you have 4 hours. I said,
Yeah,
well, 4 hours to do what? 4 hours to actually make the pitch. But they said, you can hardly have 4 hours.
yeah,
And we are going to decide between you and a few other companies. Again, the it was a single solution procurement,
yeah.
a large company, very large company, industrial company in the US,
Hmm.
one of the bigger ones.
Hmm.
And so we had at that point, that was probably one of the earlier stages where we were like beginning to think like this because the customers were coming to us and saying, we don't have much time. So
Right.
in return, I said, okay, we can do it. And it's just like we're always up for a challenge, but we told them that we need certain type of people to actually come to the meeting.
Mm.
Now go back and say, why do we even do these things? Why do we talk about value and why do we actually engage with the customer? It is really to gain access. It is really to show them that, hey, we are very credible, that we understand your business and we want to understand your business. And we have frameworks with which we can make speed up your not only the discovery process, but your transformation of your company. So they agreed with all of the people that we had asked for, and these included division presidents and people from the different procurement and supply chain disciplines. They brought like 20 people. And we took maybe 15 people of our own, which were experts in our product and like the different type of the disciplines, and we really knew how to extract all the information. We had done some work on the metrics, but we showed them the metrics, got them to comment on it. Are these good enough metrics? Because there is really no perfect metrics. Are
Mm.
they usable? That's the only thing that really matters. In and the story I told you, like we went like really fast. We had like hundreds of questions. We went really fast, and all of us were like taking notes. And 2 hours into the meeting, they said, "Can we take a 15-minute break?" And I said, "No." I said, "First, I need to understand: is this 15 minutes coming from my time, or is are we going to extend the time?" So everybody laughed, and because by that time the credibility issue we were way past.
Right.
And they said, okay, no, we can actually extend the meeting 15 minutes. And we only extended the meeting 15 minutes.
Right.
By that time, the sale was already done. I
Yeah.
mean, just like because they looked at us, they said, "Oh wow, these guys really understood our business, and they're helping us." And we continued on like doing a lot of work with them in my career over many years, and they continue to be like a great partner with Oracle. And many of these companies, like some of the smaller companies, they would also say that you tell us what information you need ahead of time, we can get you that information. And would I say was this like a unique thing for a small company versus a large company? Not really. The large companies also don't have a lot of time. Small companies don't have a lot of time. I would say the whether it is a shorter or a longer discovery process depends on how many different business areas that you are
Right.
actually working on.
Makes sense.
Because Oracle having technology, CRM, human resources, financials, supply chain, there's a lot of stuff. And if you're going to do all of that in one shot, that
Right.
is going to take a little bit more time. But what we were able to do in like some of the first ones is be able to lay down the vision, what we were going to do with them over the next 2 or 3 years. But then we'd still subdivide all of those solutions
Makes sense.
into
Makes,
multiple engagements.
makes sense. So
That's
with the
more.
success of these, you were then an internal service provider to this large portfolio company set within Oracle, right? So it's almost like an industry itself. Like you were helping smaller companies within Oracle, larger companies, since there were a lot of portfolio companies to begin with. Uh,
Yes, and globally. And
Globally. So basically, you had to figure out how to scale this program, not just to large complex programs, but even to maybe smaller programs with where the deal size may not be that big. So
yeah,
I'm
and one of the things again, as I add, the big secret sauce was we were actually using all of the sales resources within the company, enabling them so that we could work better together. I mean, train them and says, okay, this is the part that you
right,
do. This is the
right,
part will help you, but either at the end, you can make the presentation, I can make the presentation. We all worked as a unified team. And I was a small company. I would want all of my people to be able to do this with some hand holding from like somebody who can actually lead more difficult things, but also be a coach and help them. That's what, after leaving some of these larger companies, I've actually been helping a lot of mid-sized companies build some of their programs like this.
So thinking about a smaller company, right? Problems that you have mentioned are very common. There are maybe busy people, right? Even a small company will often provide the same objection that, hey, we don't have time. We've already thought about this. We spend a lot of money. I hear this a lot even in our company that, hey, we are doing this project. We've spent 100, 200K already. I don't really know whether this is work. I don't know we have time. You guys are saying that your project is going to take 2 3 months. I don't know, we have other things going on. And that's the same thing that any salesperson hears, and they have to figure out how to break that and also talk about value. So where, and you're right, some top salespeople know how to manage this, and they figure out how to, there are top salespeople for a reason, they can do it. So how does this methodology compare with, there's so many other sales methodologies out there now today, like there's MEDDIC Champion Selling, there's so many. At any given time a software company will be training their sellers on quite a few methodologies, especially if they're successful. Where does this fit in? Is value consulting, is this like MEDDIC? Is it different? How should a CRO who's listening to this conversation between us contextual, the why this program, and should they have other programs too, or how will they justify this for themselves?
Typically, I've seen companies actually do a lot of account planning,
Mhm.
and I have a lot of experience in that as well. But at end of every account planning, and people listening to it will probably relate to it. The action item, the last action item is somebody needs to figure out how do we actually connect with the executives at the customer, which means that now still you need some sort of content and some sort of value proposition to go talk to them. So I would not call this and put it in a small box of value consulting.
Mm.
This is, I would say, consultative selling. Okay.
Consultative selling.
Consultative selling. Because in the past, you could actually make some very clear distinctions. Do we have a sponsor? Do they have a budget?
Yeah,
And do we have this and that? It's just like it's irrelevant, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
Because, and we faced all of this because a lot of times, like at Oracle, we would know that, hey, this customer that is not quite ready, but they're ready for something. I
Hmm.
mean, if they're ready to talk to us, we are ready to talk to them. And it's just like working with them, we would always be able to find something to move forward with. And if we could identify that, hey, they're at an early stage and the sales team doesn't have a sponsor. Did we walk away? No. We worked very actively to get them a sponsor because some of our team were like a lot more skilled in getting a meeting and going up the chain and like a pitching some simple project. So we getting a sponsor for the sales team was a big thing. And I still do that. I still do that for some other smaller companies, go help them with meeting planning and things like that. And at different stage, you can do different things. If you're really looking to say that this company is a good target for me, and maybe you called on Tuesday and you didn't talk to the right guy on Tuesday, and then it's just like you didn't really have a good story for them. But that doesn't mean that if you go with another story another day, they are not going to be agreeable. And every conversation gives you some additional information for you to be able to refine what your message would be. And maybe they're not ready now, maybe they'll be in the pipeline 6 months later. So if you believe in the consultative value or selling methodology and value being like an integral part of it, and other integral parts are actually gaining consensus and gaining not only one champion in there and making large teams to be your champions, like
Right, right.
getting and listening to them, and they see you as you're the one who are actually telling my story to my company because I cannot tell my story to my company.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And that's where you do a lot of
Makes sense.
validation.
Makes
You do multiple
sense.
repetition and say,
Makes sense.
is this proposal meeting your individual needs and your company's needs? And
Yeah.
then people would say, yes, it is. They all would go back to their CFO and say, and like some of the stories I told you, that was probably the biggest thing. That say, this is what we want. This clearly says what is the path
Yeah.
now and over the next couple of years where we are going.
Yeah.
And if you can actually get that type of consensus, now you have like you're on a path to making like some iconic customers, like
Makes sense.
global accounts and the people who've been there who are going to be early adopter when your company adds like the second product, third product. You're going to go back and say, hey, I have this new thing too. Please add it. And they're not going to question it. They're just because you've been working with them and they trust you. So it's
Right.
developing that trust over a long period.
Makes sense. I think we are all now understanding that this is really about consultative selling, and it is creating a relationship with these companies to help them understand their own story of transformation, and help when their people understand their own story of transformation, they can align around it, because sometimes even that is not clear to them, and helps them align on a vision. So when we were talking about this, you gave me a very succinct explanation. If I was to make a 10, 12 slide deck, this is how the story will be. So I just want you to give a, let's take a more simple product for an example. What is a, something that people can understand when they're listening to this? What is the high level story arcs of such a, I guess, presentation that you would generally tend to use in these sort of conversations?
Yeah, generally, I said before that it is you have to actually talk about some of your capability, credibility in here, right? You are going to look at that company and say, what type of business are they in, and how successful are they in relation to their peers, and what do you think might be some of they could actually use some improvement.
Right.
And some of that, a lot of that information is available publicly. Now it's like easier to get than it was when we were first building the program. Uh, but you would actually come up with a perspective, like your outside in perspective on what do you think they ought to do, and what do you think if they did follow your recommendation, what could be potential benefits for them.
So
And
let me put a sequence for the audience in mind, and then you correct me and tell me whether this works as a generalized idea. So
Mhm.
starting with, take X industry for example, we are trying to sell to healthcare companies, and then you
Mhm.
start in your domain of healthcare, X trend is happening, things are changing, and you are here today. And this is like we paint a place for where you are today and where you need to get from A to B. We talk about other peers of yours, competitors or peers or rivals who are making this transition as we speak. So it provides more impetus for you to move. So you're putting the context around the change that is happening in their industry, that they need to keep up with the times, so to speak. And then you're trying to say the capabilities you have today allow for certain things, but if you're wanting to go to a new destination, there is a different set of capabilities that are going to take you there. And for that, these are the things, maybe across technology or people or processes, that you need to change. And in our opinion, we created a maturity curve. You're somewhere X on the maturity curve and you need to be Y. And from moving to X to Y, this is what you're going to need. And so roughly that's the sort of thing that I believe you had mentioned to me.
So I can tell you, we built that. Those this is what I was saying. We had like very powerful frameworks, and they were based on the capability maturity models. We would divide every industry into some functions that made them like very vertical while they are an industry, because they have customers in the industry, they are marketing to them, they're selling to them. Those are unique processes, and they are help the automotive and healthcare have unique processes for how their customers are, and that's what makes them an industry. They have a
Yeah,
unique product for that industry, and they have a unique delivery mechanism for that industry. Once we know that what is going on in healthcare in those areas, and we had a detailed breakdown of what capabilities does a company need to be able to do a certain function. And in general, when you have like how do you actually collect customer information? How do you communicate with customer? I'm just taking a very basic example that we can all relate to. Now you go back to the 90s, that was a very manual process. And as technology continued to change,
yeah,
it has become that's not even a real big issue anymore. It's ubiquitous, right? There's so many tools available to get that.
yeah,
So typically, a more mature process will have more integration and be faster. And some of the processes a company wants to be actually transformational on, in which they will compete. So once you have that, that allows us to quickly assess that where they are, where their gaps are. And that's your IP. Every company doesn't really have it, but it can be easily built for some of the people that who might be listening, if they are focusing on a certain area. Because you can actually, looking from the outside, you can ask those questions and say, do they have this, do they have that, or not? It's just a lot more elements. It's just like, rather than saying, are they doing well or not doing well, that's a binary thing. But you have a whole bunch of things. And it's a great tool to run a workshop with, because you ask people in a room, and some of the people who are like vested in the solution will say, oh no, we are best in class in everything. And you, as a facilitator, don't even have to say anything. The rest of the room will take them down and say, oh no, like we don't have this, we don't have that. And then eventually they'll come up to an agreement that yes, this is where we want to go, but we are not there yet. And then you're trying to prioritize some of the investments. They will see why they need to actually improve in some of those areas. It's not a end all, it's actually a tool which is used to drive consensus.
yeah,
And then they can see, you can build like a 2 year roadmap or 1 year roadmap on what things will improve. And
yeah,
then if the CFO is looking and says, hey, I'm going to spend like $1 million with you, what am I going to get in return? The answer is right there. Okay,
right,
in 1 year, these are the things we are going to move the capability level from here to here, and
yeah,
the expected benefit would be that much.
yeah,
So all of this is goes towards building the consensus within the company,
right,
because they cannot. One of the reasons that a lot of times they can't really move a deal forward or a purchase forward, because they have to go to their CFO and they really don't know how to justify
yeah,
that, what are they going to get out of it. So
makes
I
sense.
would say that one of the services that we provide is really to the customer, so they can actually take it to their company. And many of the companies have, in my experience, have come to me and says, we want to do this, but we cannot really justify it. So I said, so there is no selling required. They said, really no selling required. Just help us explain this to our CFO and like the management in like a manner that they would understand, because they many of the companies don't have this capability.
Yeah,
So you would actually help them get it through, and it's in the product company's advantage, because if you can actually help them move the sales process, and this is where I'm saying consultative process, because many of those other sales processes will not really think about bringing this type of expertise into a.
that is what I've observed is that today within software sales, a lot of software has gotten very close to commoditized, but a lot of software is still being sold with value added services, professional services. And so there is a split in the sales talent in the world. There is the 20k deal, 15k deal sellers who are like, hey, you know how to buy this, it is like standard, like buying tomatoes, like we bulk wholesale tomatoes to you, and this is how tomatoes are going to be sold, and there's no discussion of how the tomato will be sold. However, there is people who are trying to sell a value, and they are now not having the sort of DNA from teams like yours, where they don't really have a method in which to bring the client along into a new process, but they're really at some point selling 200k deals, 400k. I just finished a project with a pre-IPO 100 plus million security company, and they have deals in the half a million range. And the same problem happened in the buyer side, that their buyer, who may be the chief information security officer, understands the value and understands this is really powerful for the organization, but they cannot communicate this easily to the COO or their executive team, even though they clearly understand the value and they clearly understand that it will be helpful. So for a team to now come in and say, okay, we're going to do this 2 hour session, maybe 2 meetings, and give you this output, help you figure this out so that you can go and sell. Now, suddenly, this deal that was taking a long time to close, where your buyer maybe was agreeing to the benefit, suddenly this deal is accelerating, and now you have access as the salesperson to their executive leadership, and they're interested because they can see the multi-year vision. Then they now go into the process of saying, okay, we trust you as a company, we see you have a good vision, let us work together to close this, and the conversation suddenly changes. So that's what I was trying to at least summarize from this discussion,
Let,
because
let me let me reinforce some of that and add a little bit to it,
yeah,
because I really like your tomato example,
yeah,
because tomato is not a tomato. It's really on how you are going to use the tomato. If the tomato is going to be used in a salad,
yeah,
and it is people are going to look at it and marvel at how pretty it looks, then it
yeah,
has more value. And if the tomato is just going to be like blended and put it somewhere, then it doesn't. So you have to know how your product is going to be used, and that's how it becomes differentiated. By itself, everything is a commodity, right? It's just once you actually understood that what is the problem that they
Inter-
are trying to solve with it.
interesting.
And I find that a lot of people do
Hmm.
not really ask the question on how they are going to use the product. What is the
Hmm.
final project,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how where does this fit into the final project?
yeah,
And because they're solving a company level problem, some transformation level problem, and your widget may be just like somewhere in there. But it's good to actually understand what the whole thing is, because without understanding how it is getting used, it is very difficult to put a value on it,
interesting. Interesting.
and it will then just be that, yeah, it's a widget. We're selling you a widget.
Interesting. So the framing of a conversation is around like this bubble when you're initially talking to a buyer and you don't really have the larger context. What this methodology is now allowing you to do is access that larger context. When the person agrees that you have the credibility and the experience to understand their larger context, their defenses open up, and they're bringing you in as a partner to design the full thing
Yeah.
that maybe earlier you did not have an access to, or had the confidence to even ask or understand, okay, how do I go into X industry and do this? I'm just
Right.
some salesperson. I don't know anything about industry. So now if I have a scalable solution to now enter this industry with the context, now I am trusted. I have a seat at the table at more of an executive level.
That I think is important. If you're going to get in, be treated like a partner,
Yeah,
you have to be able to empathize with them on what is it that they are trying to do. And you're not really trying to just sell the widget, you're really trying to make them successful because they are the person who's your executive sponsor has a lot of challenges. They're trying to get things done, but they don't have all of the knowledge. And if you can bring them additional knowledge based on your experience working with other similar companies, you can actually make it easier for them. And a lot of times, customers have directly called me because they said, "Hey, you worked with us a year ago. Can you actually come back with just like for a day and help us really think through something?" And I'm happy to do it because I really
yeah,
enjoyed doing that, and it
yeah.
just that helped.
Interesting.
And
So I want to just combine this thing with what's happening today, right? Like people are getting really excited about AI. There is a lot of automation on the software side happening with AI. People are thinking that things are going to become much cheaper, development is going to be much cheaper. But this part of somebody really trusting another person to be the partner, do you think that's going to change? Because I feel like that's the one thing where trust and human trust is still involved, regardless of whatever you can automate or whatever tooling you can provide. You still need there is still a human at the other end, and they still have a goal, and they are not just going to trust any code or technology at the end of the day, even if it is for cheap. People would still pay more money to go to a route where they trust a human being rather than even an open source piece of technology. What's your take on that?
so this is actually a very good question that you asked. And the answer is that yes, AI happened. It was already going to happen. Just if you take a 50 or 100-year view of how the processes have changed, you are young enough, you probably have never seen a fax or like maybe a phone that was connected to the with a wire or whatever, but it just
Yeah,
yeah, that fax was an innovation at some point, and at some point people were actually selling faxes, and then suddenly it wasn't there, and
yeah,
then people were like sending data packets over EDI and things like that to their vendors, and that was the best practice, and it just moved on. So as the technology progresses, whatever is considered best practices change. So it is a continuously changing environment. And whatever we would consider transformational, which maybe like 1 or 2% of the companies are actually experimenting with, like beyond the horizon type of capabilities, that will become best practice. So the maturity curve is constantly moving. Whatever we would call best practice 10 years ago in our personal lives, it's not. Now it's so old fashioned. It's just like now there's new tools. But
yeah,
whatever the new tools, we know guaranteed that in 5 years we won't be using these processes. We'll be using something else. So we just have to be current. It's not a static market. We have to keep ourselves up. Our product needs to be up, and like our knowledge and like how we are going to help with the customer, that needs to be remain on the up, because even our like the software is not going to be building. All of the software will have some AI agents in it, which means that the things that the customer is trying to do to be closer to their customers, that we are going to be able to improve that.
yeah,
And some companies who are not going to be able to keep up with that innovation, they will just drop out. There will
yeah,
be new companies out there will be new benchmarks so that part of thinking about the industry and your customer base has to be like an ongoing process, and it's just
yeah,
like a part of your company, and like the CRO and like some of the CEOs, they need to be thinking that what is it as the market changes in a year, are we going to be one of the first people to bring new capabilities? Because if you have new capabilities, then you have a point to talk about. If you have new capabilities, then you are going to be the commodity. I think all of this conversation goes together.
makes sense.
if you're
So
going to make your customer
the
successful.
more everything changes, the more they stay the same.
Exactly. No, the more these kind of like thinking becomes like relevant, which some, like as I was saying that when we were first doing this many years ago, our ability to collect the data about the customer to be able to make a pitch deck or whatever, it took us longer. Okay. And we like in my time over there, my team actually built like the tools with some integration that we could actually automate building of some of this content, but now it is becoming easier. Some of those things that would take us like maybe 6 hours to build, now you can probably build an hour.
Makes sense.
And so that's also changing.
Yeah. All right. So if I just trying to wrap up our discussion with what we can offer, but also what if think of a B2B SaaS CRO or a VP of sales, what do they need to now understand? How can they more seamlessly institute some sort of this approach in their sales process so that they can go beyond like the imminent problem to actually the context and try to build this consultative sale model with their buyer.
It's the CRO has a set of challenges, right? One is that they need the our part, they need to actually keep that going on while they work on like the opportunities on the new horizon, which will bring great growth. So I would say that immediately they need to be able to segment some of their markets and say where they are strong and where customers already have trust in them, they can show success, package up those stories and go to those the newer customers and the people who already have trust in them, be able to like position some of the next generation type of product or the capabilities to them. But in general, I would say segment the market, and that may seem, oh, that's so logical, but again, a lot of people actually don't do that. And segment the market where you think you are going to be strong. Where you are strong is where you have a good story, where you have good references. And if you don't have references, just don't sit back, build the reference. And just like I personally went out and wrote a whole bunch of stories working with the customer exactly the same way. And we say that you're using our product. Can we actually go through an exercise with you for a few hours and say, how are you actually using it and what did it do for you? And then write like a small kind of story, and then also ran part of the marketing for Oracle. And we very successfully for like further penetrating those areas. So we try to get like these stories in every industry. So some of these things that the CRO should actually, rather than just like the more immediate thing, think a little bit more strategically about what to do like in a 6 months or a year, and generally how to elevate the skill set of their people.
Makes sense. Makes
Not just a theoretical thing, but we just give them more skills that they are like more people can do it.
Yeah. So we just wrapping up. I'll see if there are more questions. But what can we offer to a company, right? Like we are willing to come in, we are willing to use a mix of technology and services of your methodology and help a company out in a sequence of meetings so they can at least start to figure out what opportunity they have in order to create a system like this that allows them to have all of their sellers with high fast deal velocity, increased deal sizes, increase upsell, cross sell. You were mentioning when we were preparing for the call that hey, we can offer this introductory meeting, the same methodology, so you can get a taste of it and see if it works for you.
So the way I would say one of the ways it actually such a process works is you have to look at which segments you would be strong in. Typically they correlate very well with where you're already strong, where you have one or two stories. Because you have a story, and if you haven't really written it, we can actually help properly write that story and put that into some of the talking points and the content of how your salespeople are going to reach 100 other companies that are like an identical twin to that
Right,
company. And we
right.
can actually help you with these things. And look, we've done it before.
Yeah.
And that's a very easy conversation for a salesperson to have if they have that proof point. But
Yeah.
once they get beyond that first step and somebody suddenly says, I am interested,
Yeah.
then the next question that the customer has is, okay, tell me, what is the potential, what problem are you going to solve for me? What is your potential solution? And how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
And whenever you're going to tell the cost, you obviously must first tell the value, and then say, this is how much value we could generate for you, and then say, okay, this is how long it's going to take and what the cost is.
Makes
And because I think at different steps, first thing would be to actually talk to the CRO and saying, what have they already tried? Because some of these are my ex-colleagues and whatnot, highly credible. They have a pretty good idea on when they showed up to be the CRO, what things were working well, why did they come, what exactly is the next level transformation they want to do in their team. And we do a consultative thing and say, okay, this is how we can help you, and maybe take them, handhold them through the next 10 wins. That would be
makes sense.
uh, a
Completely.
complete proof.
So I've added my meeting booking link. So we are happy to have an initial conversation to see whether we'll be able to assist you listening to this call. If you're a VP of sales on CRO, I think a conversation would be helpful. If it's not us, we can give you some tips on how to create this program or edit some of the things in your program today. But I do believe that the effort required is not a large scale effort. What I think you have proven is that even in a large setting like Oracle with very diverse product portfolio sets, you can have the same process work for multi-million deals, but you can have the same process work for smaller deals and have both benefit, because every organization benefits from having access to that buyer context. And you need a methodology that allows most of the salespeople to come to the same level. And it does not need to take a lot of time. It can be done in a rapid fashion. So I think that is the value, that train the whole team, make it so that it happens in a rapid fashion, have some easy wins. And in order to figure out how to do that, we are starting to build this capability in-house as well through your guidance. And the link is provided here. We're happy to provide answers. And if you have general questions on the approach, we are happy to answer that as well. So please send us your questions. Please DM me, DM Harry, and we'll answer. But that was our short presentation. So thank you so much for the insights and backstory. I know you've barely scraped the surface, and when we've spoken, there are many more things you've told me about all of the different real life situations that have happened at the team. So hopefully we'll cover that in another webinar soon.
Great. Thanks, Ajay. I think we continue to take this movement forward and add value to the industry.
Thank you. All right. Cheers.
Bye.